Finding out I was pregnant, I knew that if I was going to say yes to this from that moment, it would be a solo path. I was met with like shock, but also with excitement. It was a really interesting experience. And although I felt like, oh my God, like I know in this moment, if I say yes to this, that I'll be doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
It also in that moment felt like an instant yes. It was
Mm.
just like I felt the fear of it and the unknown of it, but then I also felt like it was something that I was meant to do.
I want to welcome you to Identity Evolution, the podcast where we explore the moments that shape who we become. I'm your host, Lorena Schuth, somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I'm here to guide you through the raw and the real and the transformative stories of reinvention. There is probably no bigger identity shift than when you become a mother. Today's guest is Samantha Rose, who made the radical decision to have a baby entirely on her own. As you can imagine, this completely shifted her life trajectory and her identity. In this episode, Samantha shares all about what led her to making this choice, how she had to grieve her initial desire to have a baby with a partner, and why this unconventional path is a path she would in no way want to change. She also shares about her choice to have a free birth at home without medical intervention and realistically depicts the reality of solo motherhood both as a profound rebirth and an initiation into accepting support and community. If you want to be a mom, or you're currently a mom on your own, or you're just curious about what solo motherhood entails and how it can reshape you, let this interview empower you. Because if there is one thing I got from this, it's that women are fucking amazing, magical creatures that can make anything happen. Hi, Samantha. Good to see you.
Hello, lovely to be here.
I'm excited to have you on today about your story. We met many, many years ago, pre-COVID, if I remember correctly. You were not a mom at that stage yet, and you've been through this whole rebirth, evolution, huge shift in your life. And you're now even supporting other solo mothers on their own journey, which is a journey, I assume, that can feel really lonely. And it's really important to have support when you make such a significant choice to raise a child on your own. And so when we met, both of our lives looked very, very different. And today I just want to ask you everything about your decision to become a mother on your own, to birth on your own, and what that has changed for you in your life, obviously a lot, and in your identity as well. So yeah, I'm excited to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It feels like really divine time in this conversation as well. Just things that, just stuff that's been going on for me in the background and really allowing this experience to integrate more and like just been sitting with a lot lately around solo motherhood and what it's really brought for me the last few years. So perfect timing to have this conversation. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, let's start at the beginning before you even took this huge leap. Um, Before you ever considered becoming a mother on your own, what was your relationship to motherhood in general? Did you always know you wanted to be a mom in general, or was that something that only transpired later on?
Yeah, I always desired to be a mother. It was always something I thought about and something that I wanted to do. I guess though I never expected it to be a solo motherhood journey. I always thought I would meet someone, be in a relationship, and then, then we'd have children. So that part was very unexpected, shall we say. And yeah, it was something I always thought I would do, but it just veered on a path that is very different to what I thought it would look like.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, yeah, I guess sometimes you have expectations of the way things should naturally go, and then sometimes through life experiences it goes down a different route.
Yeah.
Um, and something I wanted to share as well around like, I think we'll probably go into this, but just even making that decision of becoming a solo mother, like even though it wasn't the way I envisioned, it came at a really, really potent time in my life where
Mm.
she felt like such a gift, at that time. So even though it wasn't the way I imagined it to be, um, it still felt right, even though it was a different route. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to go into that. And just on a personal note as well, I've not shared this with you, or maybe I have shared this with you, but a while ago I was considering this path for myself, or I was thinking about whether this might be a path for me. And I do think, we're now living in a time where women are having children later and later because it's possible for us. It used to not be possible for us. And um, so many more women are now choosing to prioritize their careers first, prioritize other things in their lives. They don't need to settle for a partner anymore just to have a partner. And so now this is a path that so many more women are embarking on. And it's, like for myself, I have decided that it's not going to be the path for me. I mean, who knows what the future holds, but it doesn't feel aligned for me personally. But um, I've spoken to a lot of solo moms who all said what an empowering decision it has been, but a
Mm.
lot of them also said how much grief came with that decision initially because the life they envisioned for themselves was, to meet a partner, to have a family with that partner. And so I would love to dive before we go into the decision and everything that happened from there on. I would love to dive a bit more into this with you. How did you see partnership, family, and timing before you made that decision? How did you envision your future before even the consideration entered the picture to do it on your own?
Yeah, totally. And I just want to say first, like, I totally respect women that either like decide to go down that route of solo motherhood or to not, because it is such a huge decision. And like, yeah, to really be in that situation and then to say yes to it, whether it's something you from the start were deciding to do, or whether it was something like in my case was more of a surprise, let's say, and then being in that situation of like, do I want to go down this route of like being a solo mother or not? I guess before that, my idea was that I would meet someone, be in a relationship for a few years with someone, really get to know someone and be in that partnership together. And then that would be the next step. And so when I was met with, yeah, that moment of finding out I was pregnant, something I will share that's quite personal as well is I had been in this situation prior where I had fallen pregnant, and it wasn't the right time. Yeah, I decided to have an abortion, and it just wasn't the right time. I was a lot younger in a different phase of my life. And so when this happened at this point, although it wasn't the way I envisioned it, I was like, I couldn't go down that route again. I thought, what if this is my chance? Like, it's not
Mhm.
the way I expected it to be, but what if this is a chance for me to be a mother? And, I also do believe and really hope that although we're in this journey together right now, doing it just the two of us, that I'll still meet someone later down the line. So it's just a very different experience of what I imagined it to look like. But yeah, hopefully that answered what you meant by
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, sometimes life throws us curveballs and we get confronted with these decisions. And I totally understand this because I think sometimes something we need to talk about also, the work that I do is very much based around its identity work, its self-concept work, but a lot of it is also about manifestation, a very embodied approach to manifestation. So sometimes I will have women who come to me, I have a lot of mothers who work with me, but I also have a lot of women work with me who want to be mothers. And let's say they are in their mid 30s, like then we're yeah, we can. I truly do believe we can create any reality that you want. I'm a big believer in manifestation. And I also believe that it's important to release the timeline. And we have this very real reality of we have a biological limit, like, yes, we're now at a time in a time where we have the option to, get pregnant later on in life than it used to be the case. But nonetheless, there is a limit. And so it's important to consider that. And I love what you're saying, just because you chose to embark on this path on your own for now, because
Mhm.
that's what life presented to you and you chose to take, to go with it, that doesn't mean that you can't still have this beautiful vision of a family that you have with a partner, because you can only get pregnant and have children for so long, but you can meet a partner at any stage of
Oh,
life.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And my sister always jokes with me. She's like, I feel you'll have another child and you won't be doing it solo. Like I really feel that the next time you'll be doing it with someone, and maybe, this was something that you were to go through, this initiation of doing it alone, because it's really invited me into, not just being a mother, but also like really actually embodying that more um, masculine within me and within the structure to hold her to. So it's helping those elements come online as well, which, yeah, I feel like I can be more easily in my feminine, but it's really asked that to be online too, not like for both her and for me. So it's, yeah, that itself feels like a real gift.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about, the moment where that decision became real. So, as I understand it from what you shared so far, it was a bit of an accident. So you
yeah.
felt pregnant and then you were like, should I do this on my own or not? Is that right?
Very much so, yeah. It was someone I knew of, a kind of one night fun, let's say, and then not long after it realised I was pregnant.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget the moment it happened, because I was also that particular moment I was on the way to a funeral,
Hmm.
and I just had this feeling very much like I had the last time that I had fallen pregnant, that you just know, like my body just was. I just had this knowing,
You're so
and
in tune with your body as well. So,
yeah, yeah, and I was just like, I'm gonna do a test, and again, my sister was like, "Oh, you probably aren't. Like, you're probably like worrying over nothing." And I'm like, "No, I just have this feeling."
mhm.
And then that very morning, took the test and was met with like initially absolute shock, and was just like, "Oh my god!" Because even in that moment, I also knew, like, that finding out I was pregnant, I knew that if I was going to say yes to this from that moment, it would be a solo path, just
Yeah.
from, I know, from the person. So yeah, I was met with like shock, but also with excitement. It was a really interesting experience. And although I felt like, oh my God, like I know in this moment, if I say yes to this, that I'll be doing it on my own, it
Hmm.
also in that moment felt like an instant yes. It was
Mm.
just like I felt the fear of it and the unknown of it, but then I also felt like it was something that I was meant to do. And going back, I'll share a little bit of this too, but like, and it's something that's coming up for me a lot at the moment. Like, I'm integrating and just really sitting with like grief again, because only
Hmm.
like not even a year prior to that, I lost my dad really sudden, very tragically. And so I'd been moving through this year of like great, like deep grief and loss. And then I feel that moment of finding out I was pregnant, although I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It also felt like a gift, like from what I had been moving through with my father. And so, yeah, there was a moment, there's just this moment of like kind of feeling an instant yes, but then also like just that unknown of like, okay, what's this actually going to look like? And it's not what I imagined it to be. And I know it's going to be a solo path, you know? So a whole array of emotions unfolded from it. And then from that moment, after, yeah, just had some conversations with friends and family, and I said yes to it. And also, like when I said yes, I was also like, I kind of spoke to spirit and was like, okay, if this is for me and this is a path that I have to take, like let it unfold. And if not, then, you know, miscarriages happen, like things happen where pregnancies don't go ahead. So I was very much in a surrendering of, if this is what I've to move through now and like embark on, then I trust that everything will go to plan smoothly. And so yeah, that's kind of where it all evolved and started from.
Wow. Yeah, that's so big. That's so many emotions to move through as well. You've just been through this really big grief portal. I don't think there's like a much bigger grief than losing a parent, maybe losing a child, but
Yeah.
it's such a big grief portal. And I remember this actually. I remember your very vulnerable shares online, and I was like I felt, yeah, that it was such an honor that you let yourself be witness in it and to share so openly and so raw. And then yeah, soon after there's this next cocktail of emotions when you find out you're pregnant. And I'm sure I always feel like, because I've sat a lot over the last few years with the decision, do I want to be a mom or do I
Mm,
not want that? And I've had, in my past, I had moments where I was like, oh no, that's not for me. And I feel like once I hit my 30s, I was like, yes, I want this. and and recently I've been more in a place of surrender where I've been like, I know for me right now, I care more about um partnership with or without children than I care about being a mom. And also it I kind of sat with it and I realized there is grief that you need to move through either way,
mm,
because you're saying no to a specific version of your life. When you say yes to either being a mother, then you'll never have the version of your life where you're completely unattached without any commitments, and you don't have to self-sacrifice as much. And if you choose not to be a mother, or that option isn't possible for you, because that's a thing too, right? It's such a gift to even for our bodies to even be able to grow life and birth life. And I'm sure we're going to get into that also. When you make that decision not to do that, you have to grieve never having that. So there's grief either path. And that's something that I've been sitting with a lot. So I'm wondering, was there a part of you, even though it was such a strong yes, was
mm.
there a part of you that grieved the life that you wouldn't get to live?
Oh yeah, totally. And it still comes in waves, you know. It's not even now. I still have moments where I'm like, oh gosh, this is not what I imagined it to be like. Although it's beautiful and I'm filled with gratitude to have her. But as we'll probably get into more too, like solo motherhood is really intense, you know, and like not even just having someone there for your child, but just having that connection with someone for you too, you know.
Mhm.
So I've definitely been met with that, like at that moment of like making that decision, like although as well it didn't feel right, like the person that it happened with would have been the right person anyway. Um,
Mhm.
I really had to sit with like, oh gosh, like this was never what I imagined it to be like, and there was deep sadness in that, you know, like moments of it through the pregnancy, moments of it through the birth, um, and then now being in motherhood, those early years of motherhood, there's moments too, you know, and now my daughter's at an age where she's understanding what daddy is through other
Mm.
relationships, and the first time she said that, I was like, it really hit me in the heart. I was like, wow, like at the moment, like she doesn't have that, you know. I'm her both, you know, and how to yeah, just really hold myself in that and also really hold her in that experience and bring in other people around me that can support her because we don't have that in the household and around us, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And when you made that decision, you said like it was a very clear yes for you and you kind of felt it before even taking the test, and but you had also all these other emotions come up. What were kind of like the internal conversations and fears and considerations that came up for you?
I think the biggest fear was it was the unknown of what to expect, like being on this journey on my own. And I had to really lean into trust. So like going back to that point of making that decision of stepping into this pregnancy, from day one it was like trusting the process, like trusting if this was the path that I was to go in, then step by step it would unfold.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really had to sit with the fear of pregnancy, like what that would look and feel like, as well as birth and yeah, just becoming a mother. So there was this real dance of like really sitting with the unknown and then the unknown of what's going to unfold. But then in the same breath, like, well, how can I also lean into trust and surrender? And it really taught me about presence and about living more, day to day and just like being more in moment to moment because I definitely noticed like when I became pregnant and I started to kind of think about the future and what was going to come, it at times felt very overwhelming. So it really taught me about that. Just it deepened the practice of like anchoring into self and anchoring into my body and trust. And then when I spoke to my family, I was obviously having conversations around like, you know, I don't have a partner in this experience, so can you offer support? What's that
Yeah.
support going to look like? And thankfully, I'm so grateful that I do have like my mum and my sisters who have been incredibly supportive from day one. And even when I shared about, which we'll probably go into more later, but sharing what I wanted postpartum and stuff like that was also there. They kind of supported
Mhm.
me the best that they could. So yeah, having these conversations around like what is this going to look like if I am doing it on my own, and what support do I need to bring into to hold us in this. And also with some friends as well that are here, was speaking to them, and but I honestly, like within everyone I spoke to, I got nothing but deep support and like and loving it all, and we're just like, if this is what you want to do, like we're here and we'll be here with you. So some are mothers, some are not, and that's been a real blessing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really important. And maybe important to point out that when you choose to be a solo mom, whether that's, because it just happens to you, and or whether that's, women who maybe intentionally want to embark on this journey, who want to go through IVF and, really intentionally do this on their own.
Mm,
Um, you're not really going to be on your own, or you shouldn't really be on your own. You need a support system around you, right? And it's really beautiful that you had that and that you weren't met with judgments, because I'm sure that could have happened as well, to be met with judgment for doing this on your own. So yeah, that's really beautiful that you've been so supported there.
yeah, totally. And something else that was coming through there was like, even like when I witnessed that in my daughter too, and like the way that she's been connecting with these people.
Mm.
There was a book I read, I can't remember what one it was. There's a few I've read, but it was speaking about the importance of course, the main caretakers is the mum and dad of the child, but if that child can also have other pillars that support that child, it builds such a great foundation for them. Because it's not the way we're meant to parent. Like nowadays with nuclear families, it's like mum, dad, kids. That's not what it was like not even that long ago.
Yeah.
So there was
Takes a
also a
village.
real grief in that around. I felt that so much in early motherhood, where I was like, it was like this deep, deep like grief of, it felt so alien to just be me and Rose in the house. Like I constantly felt like, why is there not more people in the house? Like they would come in and out, but it was like it must have been like this deep ancestral like feeling of back in the day. there would be multiple people like always around you and with
Yeah.
children and with you, and so that's a whole other thing. But yeah, just even that for Rose, like having these other like pillars that are support and foundation for her. I've really, even although she's only 2.5, I've noticed how much that's benefited her as well.
Hmm.
Just having that too. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important. And I sometimes wonder because like a lot of the work I do is about trauma resolution as well. And so I work a lot with people on their childhood trauma, and all of that tends to be, not always, but a lot of that tends to be connected to mom and dad, right? And I sometimes wonder if we had more variety, right? If we didn't grow up with just mom and dad, but we grew up with like this whole group of people, and maybe we would have less abandonment issues, because we're not so reliant on that one or two caretakers. But that's just a theory of mine. There's no scientific, maybe there is scientific research around it. I
oh,
don't know. I don't know of any.
I hear you though. It makes so much sense. Like, it's such a huge responsibility to bring up a
Hmm.
child with just one or two people.
Yeah. And I think it's also important, that you have that support and I think that's why it's so beautiful that you do the work you do now, because, other women need that support too. Like, we're not meant to go through this alone either. So I'm curious to also hear, just to go more into the journey itself, what did early pregnancy look and feel like for you, or like your pregnancy as a whole? And you also shared with me that you free birthed solo, which such a warrior. Hello. At what point did you know that you wanted to do this? And, what did that decision making process look like?
Yeah, so when I found out I was pregnant, I always envisioned having a home birth. So initially I looked into doing like a home birth with the midwife team. But at the same time, I was also researching about free birth, and I wanted to kind of figure out like what the difference was. And I ended up doing this. It was like an online course about free birth, and I think it was over 8 weeks. And I did that quite early on pregnancy. So after doing that, it completely changed my idea of what I wanted to do. So I went from wanting a home birth to wanting to do a free birth.
Wow.
Just what I had learned about, like, and I know the system's there for its reasons and it's there if we need it. But personally, I wanted to have as much like non-intervention as possible. I wanted it to be as natural and as I mean, they call it a free birth, but it's the way we would have birthed again back in the day before all these interventions and hospitals and stuff came online. So I just wanted the journey, pregnancy as well, and birth to be very natural and very connected to my body, and just really trusting and listening to my body that she knew what to do. So that started off with the pregnancy as well, became a wild pregnancy. So what that meant was I never had any appointments I pretty much was not involved with the NHS at all. I had one private scan initially just to find out I was pregnant, to like confirm that I was pregnant. And then I had another private scan to find out the gender. But other than that, I had no involvement with the NHS. So there was no midwives, there was no routine checkups or anything like that. It was very much from day one listening to my body and really just trusting that whole process. And then through this free birth journey, though, that also got me to really dive into like what fears were there around birth,
Mm.
because they were there. Like I had heard stories from family, from friends. I had also been in birth, like been birthed into the world. So I had to really sit and unpick all of that, because when I initially thought about birth, I was afraid. I was afraid of the unknown and not knowing what to expect. So yeah, I had to really sit with that and unpick like what is actually my truth, because I had never given birth before to a child. So
Yeah.
ultimately, everything I knew was not mine. So I went on a real journey of all of that, and alongside I guess just continuing to deepen that connection and trust with my body, that it ended up coming to making the decision to do a free birth, but also making the decision that none of my family members would be there. Because of what I knew about birth at this point, and like even if someone was in the room that felt any fear, even if they weren't voicing it, because of the primal part of what I would be in and that experience within my brain, within my body, I would know. And it would take me out of my experience of labour, of birth. So yeah, like, I even had to have the conversation with my mum. I can't have you at my birth, which was really hard. But she got it too because she was so terrified, and she was like, "Well, I actually don't know if I want to be there because, like, what if something happens?" And I would just be like freaked. So I ended up, I found a doula who became like a postpartum doula. She gave me, we had a few sessions before. Her name was Clem, and she was incredible. So I met with her a few times before, and we put together a birthing plan and everything that I wanted to unfold within birth. But within that, there was also like, if something did go wrong, like, what would you want if you had to go into hospital? So we got really
Mhm.
clear on that too, because I was never like, I'm against them and like I don't need them. Like, I was also like, okay, if I'm in this and something doesn't feel right, then we need to. There's also a plan B just in case. But that became my main priority, to just have the free birth. So yeah, the pregnancy itself was very, just, it felt strange in ways because I was, having conversations with other women who were on that path, and they would be talking about their checkups and things that they were getting done, and I had nothing, So I'd go through waves of like, this is amazing, but then I'd also be like, is my body okay though? Like, should I get it checked?
Yeah.
And then, so that was pretty much the pregnancy, and then I went, how many days? 40. I think I was like a week and a half over when I was like due, but again, it's, just a rough date.
Yeah.
And I started having those thoughts like, oh, I've gone over what they say is normal, and like, how much over should I go? But then everything worked out okay anyway, and the whole birth journey evolved, and that itself was just incredible. Like, we were able to have a free birth, and yeah, I had her at home. The plan was in a birthing pool, but it didn't really work for me, so we ended up having her on the bed. So yeah, it was such an intense but beautiful, empowering experience. Yeah, it brought up so much, and um, but yeah, that hopefully explains the dance of all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big topic. I feel like if we really wanted to dismantle everything, we would need to be here for about 5 hours. But yeah, I think it's so powerful that you chose that for yourself because yeah, not having any scans, not knowing anything. I feel like a lot of the decisions that you made throughout this journey, even the decision to, I'm going to keep this baby, I'm going to raise this baby by myself, and I don't know what it looks like. I'm scared, I'm scared of giving birth, and then I'm going to free birth, and every decision that you made, and it was kind of like a leap into the unknown. It was like a choice to trust the process, even though you didn't know how it would unfold, how it would feel, if you could do it. So I can imagine that that brings up so much, and I would love to talk more about that also. But can you bring us a bit more into the birth itself? Like, what was it
Yeah.
like to actually birth alone with no partner, no medical team, just you and the baby and a doula who supports you? I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I promise the second half will be even better. If you have been enjoying this conversation and you want to embark on your own self concept transformation, then download my free self concept mastery blueprint to get started with your own identity evolution. The link is in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, and there's one thing I do want to add, because I meant to say this, but right up until like 2 weeks before I gave birth to Rose, my younger sister, so she ended up being at the birth very last minute. And what happened was, so she basically one day was like, I think I can be at your birth. I know that sounds crazy. I know I've been like saying how terrified I am, but recently I've just had this feeling like I'm meant to be there with you. And she said, I feel like Dad has been communicating with me, who's obviously in spirit, and he wants me to be there with you. And initially when she said that, I was like, can she just change her mind that easily? Like, could she really just like be there and be present and not be in fear? But a part of me also felt like open to it. So I kind of shared with her my birth plan and what I wanted it to look and feel like. And yeah, she read over it and she was like, yep, I can do that. And then, so I was still a bit like, that feels good, but also can she, you know? And then, so the day that I went into labour, I must again intuitively knew that this was about to unravel. So I'd had like a couple of symptoms that day. And then I messaged her and I was like, can you come and stay with me tonight? I want someone to stay with me. And then that was the night that everything just like ramped up and I was fully in the birth portal. And then how that looked like was, do you know, it was for me, it felt like looking back quite a gradual build up of intensity. And it wasn't until, so it was like a Wednesday afternoon that I felt things were starting to kind of like shift. And then it was later that night, like probably past midnight, that I was in it. Like there was like regular contractions, like the intensity was building. And something that helped me immensely was the breath, like just deep
Mhm.
breaths, like presence. Like, I mean, you can't do anything other than like really be in that presence and deep connection of the body and this in the waves of the surges that move through you. And that the only way that, or the biggest way that supported me through that was the breath and sound to just help me move through it. And then we got me in, my sister filled up the birthing pool, we got me in there. And then, but then everything started to slow down a bit for me and the contractions got less. So I think it was like 4 a.m. that I texted my doula and I was like, I feel it's time for you to come. She was like,
Mm.
just let me know when you feel that you want me there. So then she arrived earlier, it was in the morning, and then we got me out the pool, and then things ramped up again. So I was in it, but just the water seemed to like just slow things down for me. So then when
Mhm.
she arrived, oh, she was just incredible. Like my sister was incredible too, very hands off, very supportive, just checking in now and again. What do you need? I'm here. And then the doula came and then let my sister have a rest and she kind of took over and we did practices like she was drumming for me, like shamanic drumming. She had rebozo wrapped cloth where she would have me on all fours and like move it to like just bring some movement to my belly and just loosen my hips. So that was really, really comforting. And then we just danced like, yeah, that early morning into the early afternoon, it was a real dance of moving, literally moving through the house to different parts of the house to try different positions to see what would work for my body. It felt very intense at points to the point where I literally felt like my pelvis was going to crack open. Like some parts were just like very intense. Like I wouldn't like say it was all like beautiful. At some points I was like, oh my God, am I just going to like open up? And so that I really had to ride through that. And then I remember at points we kind of changed from like being downstairs to being upstairs. And I remember getting up the stairs at one point and I had like 2 contractions at the one time. And I was just like, I can't get up the stairs. Like it was wild. It was intense. It was, at one point I was in the birthing pool again and I just spoke about this yesterday to my therapist. Like I had this massive like release of grief with my dad. Like I could really
Oh,
feel
wow.
him. Like I could feel, it wasn't even, it was like I remember her speaking to me about it, my doula, when I was in it. She was like, it was like this, it was like the younger version of me, like my maiden was like opening up and cracking open. And my dad came through at that point. It was a massive wave of grief, and I was wailing like a child. And I remember her saying to me, like, this is the initiation, like, this is you, like, let the mother come in, let the woman come in, let her take over. And I'm getting chills as I say that, because there was parts of me that was like, oh my God, like, can I do this? And like, you know, not, it didn't so much feel like fear, but there was definitely a part of me that was just like, can I do this? Like, can I actually do this? So there was like all of that. And then she was just like, let this like part of you come online that can, that knows that it's possible. And then,
Wow.
yeah, I was out the birthing pool again, and then we were upstairs, and then I hit the point of, and I read it in a beautiful book actually, that said when you hit the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore, like I'm done, like I'm done. It's normally you're really close to like
Mhm.
to the birth. And I felt that upstairs, and I wasn't voicing it, but I was having thoughts like, oh my God, just get me to a hospital, just open me up, like I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My doula saying to me like, do you want me to leave you alone? Do you need some space? And then I was like, no, you can't leave me alone. You have to stay with me. And I don't remember this, but my sister said at that point, like, we all held hands in a circle, and we were just like, gave me a moment. And then everything just switched then. Like, I got into this other position, which was kind of like a half squat. And then the waters broke. And then, like, I think it was maybe an hour and a half later, she was out on the bed. And then, so once the waters broke, that was the point where I really felt her descending and coming through me. And obviously, then she was born. And one other thing I'll just share prior to that was there was moments where I felt like, am I progressing? Like, because again,
Mhm.
like I didn't have the midwives there checking me and stuff. So I was like, is things happening? Is she moving? And one point my doula said to me, she was like, if you want to check yourself, like you could do an internal and just see if you can feel anything. So I very gently did that, and then I could feel my waters, and she said, like, your baby is right behind them, so you are progressing. So, you know, we're doing it, like just keep going. And she was so right. And it wasn't long after that she was born on the bed. Yeah, just straight on my body, straight on the breast. And yeah. It was
Wow.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Like, people say to me, like, would you do it again? And I'm like, yeah, even though it was so freaking intense at points, now I've done it like that, I couldn't do it another way.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I would have to.
Yeah. That's so freaking powerful as well. Like I feel like there's so many things you mentioned that really stood out to me. It's such a I feel like from what I've heard about birth, I've obviously never given birth. I've had it in an ayahuasca ceremony once. And it was like in a somatic experience of giving birth. But, I don't know if that's actually how it's going to feel in real life. But it's what I've heard about it and how I imagine it is that it's the deepest surrender, because like you can do nothing else but be present and surrender to the process. Like you've got no other control and you just need to trust your body. And that's kind of what you did even before birthing, right? You did that even in the lead up, in the decision to choose, like, I'm going to do this on my own without medical assistance. And I also love that you already brought in this identity shift, right? Like from maiden to mother. Like there's almost like a little death that happened of a version of yourself so that the mother archetype could emerge. And I also really loved that piece of where you said, when you think you can't, like you're done, you can't do it anymore, that's when you're actually really close. Like that immediately made me think of almost like an analogy or a metaphor for manifestation, because I feel like just before you're manifesting something is also the moment where you think like, that's it, I'm done, I can't fucking do this one day longer. And then, that's usually when something cracks and something comes in. So, and that's what birth is, right? Like it's the ultimate creation, like growing a child and birthing it. So I love that so much. And you really proved to yourself that you are capable, because you probably didn't think before that you could do even this alone. So I'm wondering, after birth, like when she was here, like what changed in your worldview, in your confidence, in your sense of self? Like how did your perception shift, your priorities shift, your identity shift following that?
Yeah, it's oh God, it's been such a journey, and like I think the biggest thing I would say is it changes your perspective on like the way you lived life before, where it was just you and it was like, just thinking of yourself and what you need and what you aspire and all of that is amazing. But then when you have a child, what's been the biggest thing for me is like so not about you anymore. Like you not only are you creating and building a life for yourself, but this is also for your children. And it's like it really makes you, or certainly has been my experience of it's really put light in the ways that I've not been shown up for myself, or the ways that I've not been taking care of myself the way that I truly desire to, because she mirrors everything back to me, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's mental. Like it's such a mirror, it's such a dance between like witnessing those parts, like giving those parts space to be felt and acknowledged, and then how do you want to show up? What do you want to embody more of? Because she's watching your every move too. So it's such an awakening. And like some days I get it, some days I'm still like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Because it's a real dance between, yeah, like I feel it also brings up like the ways that when you were a child, that parts that maybe weren't met and the specific ages too, that also comes up too. So it's just such a dance of like tending to your inner child, tending to your child, and also looking at the bigger picture of like what do you want for you and your child's? Because it's ultimately not about you anymore. So it feels like there's a bigger responsibility. So it really pushes you to like, I don't want to say do more, but like be more. Like be
Mm.
more yourself. Awaken more of you that's been sleeping, whether that's within, whether that's what you want to bring into your life, but it's a real awakening of how you want to walk your path, and like and then within that, since giving birth to Rose, like I quit my job and then I started a business. There was this real thing like I can't do that work anymore. Like it didn't serve before, but now having a child and now feeling more of what my authentic self is, like this does not align anymore. So like we got to let it go
Yeah.
and again step into the unknown with like fully stepping into the work that you are here to do, and that itself's been another birth and awakening, and I'm still kind of like um in the early days of that, but yeah, it's a lot and amazing and terrifying.
Yeah, you didn't just give birth to new life to your daughter, you also experienced your own rebirth, right? And that's a really, really beautiful thing. And I love how you say, like she mirrors you and it almost makes you want to become a better and better version of yourself. I have, because like I obviously don't have children and, so I don't know what that's like, but I've had so many of my clients over the years who were mothers. Almost all of them wrote in their application form, I want to do this program. I want to do this work with you because I want to be the best version of myself for my children. That always like warms my heart so much because I feel like it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I want to work on myself and I want to create the life I desire for me, like that's so much easier to do. But if we're like, actually, I want this for me, yeah, but I also want it for everyone who comes after me and for everyone I touch and everyone I'm around, and especially, the life I've created and the children I'm raising, like that's my responsibility. And now, I want to lead by example. So I can imagine what a huge shift this was for you also. Okay, so since I want to be mindful of time because I know you don't have forever, I just want to ask you if before we go into a little closing ritual that I like to do, if there's anything you wanted to share, any question that I didn't get to ask yet, anything where you're like, that's part of my story that I definitely want to touch on before we close this interview.
Yeah, there'll be one. Yeah, there's one other thing I'd love to share, and I guess we've kind of touched on it already, just around that part of, because this is something that I'm really sitting with at the moment, just around like reflecting on these last couple of years of becoming a mother, and what the intensity of it, the beauty of it, and everything in between. Um, is like, we need support. We need to be around women, mothers, um, that can truly see us in that and understand it, and like, yeah, just having that support around you, because ultimately, in order for your children to thrive, like, you need to be thriving. So in whatever ways you can find that and call that in, because even for myself, like, I do have that support, as I was sharing earlier on, like, these last few years have been really big with like death and grief, and then birth and becoming a mother, and I've been really reflecting on all of that, and um, yeah, I feel in some ways it's something I'm going to share about soon on my Instagram, just around like, it's such an awakening, it's such an initiation into this journey, that for me right now there's this part that's like calling to more integration and more
Mm.
holding. Like, my body's like, okay, let's like just catch up a bit of like what's unfolded these last few years. So I guess in that message, just like really honouring yourself where you can, to have moments of rest, to have moments of stillness, to have moments of like pulling you back into yourself, because you give so much as a mother, especially the early years. It's so important and it's so needed. As much as you can also have these moments where you can just give to yourself too, because it's needed too for mothers to survive and thrive in this journey. So I'd love to just share that too.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really important share. You can't pour from an empty cup, as cliche as it sounds, and especially when it's very self-sacrificial to raise a child. So, but you can't really do it properly if you don't believe that you deserve care also. And I
Yeah.
love that you from the beginning also asked for support, whether that's from your community, you invested in yourself, you were like doing this course. So I think that's really important. I feel like whether we're mothers or not, we need to honor and choose ourselves, and realize that we deserve that also. So I love that share a lot. Cool. So we're going to do a little quick fire closing ritual. So I'm going to ask you three questions. One is about the past, one is about the present, and one is about what's coming or what's just beyond the horizon.
Hmm.
First question is, if the version of you from before you became a mother watched your life today for one day, what would surprise them the most?
Oh. Ah. I want to say how it's interesting what's coming through, but how how beautiful the way that I mother.
Mm.
And I wasn't expecting that, because I I often feel like, am I doing enough? Is she okay? Like, but that was really strong. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
that gave me goosebumps.
Ah,
That was really
I was not
beautiful.
expecting that. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
that's beautiful. I feel like that needs to sit for a second.
Ah.
Yeah. Second question is, like, I'm getting all teary. Question is, if you were cast in a film as your current self, what would the genre be?
The genre be, so like, genre, is that like an action film or?
Yeah, like the type of film, basically.
Oh, I don't know what do you call the genre where it would be like, like an awakening, like wholesome, you know,
Mhm. Yeah, like a wholesome
like a
family.
heroine, like
Uh-huh.
a heroine's journey of like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, something around like just what you can move through in life that could potentially break you, but you're still here and you're
Oh, I
still
love that.
walking through the lens of love as best as you can.
Yeah, like a hopeful drama.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and the third question is, if the next version of yourself was a landscape, so the version of yourself that you're growing into, that you're becoming, that you see beyond the horizon, if that version of yourself was a landscape, what scenery would you now be walking into?
Oh, I'm seeing like mountains, like just such beauty in the vastness of mountains and trees and blue skies, and the sun, um, and like that metaphor of like, building that foundation of the mountain in order to soar and rise into whatever that's going to look like. Yeah.
I love that. Beautiful answer. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story. This was so much fun. And yeah, obviously anyone who's considering solo motherhood or is a single mom already, I highly recommend following Samantha. And I will put all of your links, socials, everything in the show notes. But yeah, please let everyone know how they can connect with you, where they can find you, just so, that you can share that as well.
Yeah, so you can get me on Instagram. This is Samantha Rose. And I've also got a website, samantharose.co.uk, that's got all the offerings and just more about me and my journey and even pre motherhood too. So, yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this was such a joy, and yeah, I hope we get to connect again.
Thank you. It was so good to do this with you. Thank you.
I absolutely love having these conversations because every story really reminds us that you can use any experience for your evolution, not just your breakdown. It also shows us that transformation is never linear. It's personal, it's messy, and it's what makes us human. I'm Lorena Schuth, and this was Identity Evolution. Come and find me on Instagram at Lorena Schuth, linked in the show notes, and DM me and share your key takeaway from this episode with me. I would love to know. You'll also find guest links and details in the show notes if you want to connect more deeply with them. And you'll also find my self-concept coaching program, Recreate Yourself, if you are feeling ready for your identity shift. If this episode stirred something in you, make sure you subscribe and ideally leave a quick review and rating wherever you are listening or watching. This really, really helps more people find these stories of self reinvention. See you next time.